Love is spiritual, not natural. You ever think about that? This is absolutely miraculous. With love, you get the results now. Hi, I'm Dr. Alex Loyd, and welcome to Deep Water. I'd like to discuss for a few minutes this week freedom of religion, which according to my research is one of the top 20 most controversial issues in the world today. The main source of friction seems to boil down to three things. Number one is the conflict between a religious practice and those who oppose that practice. An example of this would be like Native Americans who had all sorts of rituals they did as part of their worship. And then here come the settlers from Europe who are of a different religious belief. And to them, the Native American practices are not only not acceptable religion, but they are pagan. They are harmful. They are inhumane. They are, things like that. I'll never forget going to Mexico with Hope on our honeymoon. And one of the tours we did was to Chichen Itza, which is a pretty well-preserved Mayan city from hundreds of years ago. And it was absolutely fascinating. But I'll never forget how at this one point in the tour, they took us to this big, almost perfectly round pit, okay? And it was obvious that this was not a naturally occurring pit. They had built it, all right? And when I remember walking up and thinking, what in the world could this have been for? And then they told us it was for virgin sacrifices. That is part of their religion worship. They would take a young girl, virgin, and throw her into the pit, all right? Which would qualify with that first issue of freedom of religion, where there's a conflict between a religious practice and other people who believe that practice is inhumane, should not be done, and even if that is part of their religion, they should not be able to do it. Where the people who have that belief, virgin sacrifice or whatever, believe they should be able to do it because it's part of their religion. And that brings us to number two, which is the separation of church and state in the laws of the United States of America. The biggest problem with that historically is, and some people say that in the laws really doesn't even exist. Others say it does. But the biggest problem with it is the presence of religion in everyday life. And so if you're a Democrat or Republican or independent or, whoever or whatever you are, if you have deeply held religious beliefs that conflict with the laws of the land, that seems like an impasse. Either I'm not able to practice my religion in the way I believe I'm supposed to before God, maybe, and this state or person who voted this way or whatever is preventing me from being able to do that. And the reason that's a big deal is because America was founded on two major pillars, as best I can tell. Number one was a freedom from exorbitant taxes and the class system of Europe that was almost impossible to get out of. If you were lower class in those days in Europe, it was impossible for you to become upper class, accepted as a person of substance and importance in the world. You were just seen as a peasant. And the great majority of people in Europe then were peasants. Okay, so the settlers who came from Europe were trying to get away from religious oppression, class oppression, and exorbitant taxes. Okay, so that number two problem with freedom of religion, the separation of church and state, it is a real one, because it's one of the pillars this country was built on, to be able to practice my religion any way I see fit. But the state says, okay, but only up to a point, because you cannot impose on the freedoms of other people by the exercise of your religion. Okay? So that is still a controversial, contentious issue, but it's not the biggest one. The biggest one is number 3. And the third issue with freedom of religion is the invocation of religion for exemption from laws and in order to discriminate. And a couple of examples. The KKK, Ku Klux Klan, which still exists today, sadly. But back during the day when millions of African Americans or blacks were murdered, hung, killed, shot, treated way more like animals in a lot of cases than as people, but the members of the KKK were almost 100% Christian, and were doing, and at least said they were doing what they believed was right under the Bible and God's laws, which is absolutely blood-curdling to me. Unbelievable that they could feel that way and actually believe that. Another example is people trying to avoid paying taxes by saying it's against my religion to pay taxes. But this freedom of religion has been given quite a bit of leeway. You think of people like Jim Jones, who was, we know today, who was systematically abusing many of the people in the congregation years before they ever went to Guyana and had the mass suicide. But that was protected because of religion. A little research on Christian Scientists or the Church of Scientology might lead you to believe that those things claimed religion in order to get out of financial difficulties or to be able to practice things that were abusive toward other people, but they did it in secret, saying this is part of our religion, and even maybe at times lying about, no, we're not doing this, even though there was evidence that they were. Some examples of this to me would be 1692 and 1693 in Salem, Massachusetts, where over 200 men, women, and children were burned at the stake in violation of laws of the United States condemning murder and killing for those reasons, but they were not prosecuted. They were given that much leeway. In fact, the law was supporting that in Salem, which is unbelievable. There were situations in America also hundreds of years ago where in certain places only Christians were allowed to hold office, which again is in violation of the Constitution, I believe. War Muhammad Ali refused, even though he was drafted, refused to go to war because he said it violates my religious beliefs. He was a conscientious objector. And at the time, he was greatly vilified. And then decades later, a lot of people switched and supported him for standing up for what he believed in. So those are the three biggest issues with freedom of religion. And to me, it kind of boils down to I should be able to have freedom to live my life any way I see fit, as long as it doesn't impose on the freedom of someone else to live their life as they see fit. Okay? And so my bottom line is, as long as that's happening, as long as you are living your life the way you see fit, but you're not imposing that on me and preventing me from living my life the way I see fit, I believe we're cool. And I'm good with that. And I believe my job is to love you no matter what your belief is, no matter what your religion is, even if you are doing practices that I believe are wrong or inhumane or whatever. I might believe I should try to stop you and protect the innocent person, but my job is also to love you. Love your enemies. That's the message of love, I believe, and the message of Jesus and Gandhi and so many of the other great men and women throughout history. Okay? So, where are you on freedom of religion? Number one, conflict between practice and those who oppose the practice. Number two, separation of church and state. Even though you really can't do that because the lawmakers have religious beliefs too, right? And then number three, using religion to try to get out of laws that you don't like or things that you believe are in opposition to your religion. Abortion might be a good example of that, where people of a certain religion believe abortion is murder and wrong and should not happen. Other people who also believe in God, many of them, say it's not murder because it's not a person yet, it's not a child yet, it's a fetus, and it honors the life of the mom, gives her freedom of choice, and is acceptable. All right? So, where are you? And I will tell you where I am is that my freedoms don't keep you from your freedoms, and your freedoms don't keep me from my freedoms unless they violate humanity, which would mean abusing someone, harming an innocent, things like that. So have a discussion with someone you care and love about this week about those three issues and see what they believe compared to what you believe. And let's talk. So I hope that's interesting, maybe to a couple of you helpful. I believe freedom of religion is absolutely necessary. I believe in the reasons, anyway, that America became America. Freedom from excessive taxation, free from the state and class system that was basically impossible to improve your life to the degree that you wanted or needed, and freedom of religion, no matter what that religion is. And all should be respected, unless they violate humanity. So I hope this is something that you will think about, because it is a big issue today, and let your voice be heard, and let's discuss it in kindness and love and see if we can move toward better solutions to these issues. Thank you, and have a wonderful, blessed day.